Welcome, peeps. As always, I'm your host, Lee Bentz, and thank you for joining us on the AEW Insider YouTube edition. Let's get to that great wrestling news. AEW. On his podcast, Grilling JR, good old JR discussed how Jerry the King Lawler broke Paul Heyman's jaw on purpose. Lawler and Heyman's relationship behind the scenes at the time. It was controlled animosity. I don't think either guy liked the other very much. I think they both respected each other's abilities as professionals because they both knew how good the other was doing at their job. You'd have to be a recluse or have your head up your ass not to see them that both of them were highly skilled. But they just didn't get along. Personally, culturally, we did one of those shows on WWE Network, the Legends of Wrestling Heat Seekers episode, where we talked about things that happened in the ring, and I asked Lawler, he broke Paul Heyman's jaw, and I asked him point blank, was it an accident or did you do it on purpose? And he said, I did it on purpose. Also, why the two didn't get along? So there's always some heat there, and it's generally because of the two C's. I don't know which one it is, but I can promise you, if Heyman and Lawler didn't exist, well, in that era, it was because one of the two C's, cash or creative. But they also had a lot in common, in the fact that they could make you love them or hate them just by what they said and how they said it. So they were highly skilled in all the right areas, but and maybe it's the fact that Heyman's from Scarsdale, Westchester County, New York. Father's very successful, affluent attorney, and Lawler was raised in a more blue-collar atmosphere, growing up in Memphis, becoming a local hero there. They had different backgrounds, different routes to where they were going. So there was just nothing in common there, other than some wrestling stuff, and some of the wrestling stuff was tainted because of cash and creative. JR also talked about Jerry the King Lawler and his ex-wife, WWE, the Cat. She used to be a diva, she blew up after she married Jerry Lawler, and we always wondered what happened to her, and this pretty much gives you some insight. But Jerry and Stacy, I just thought they were a great couple. Jan and I went to their wedding in Las Vegas. I think Charles Barkley actually paid for the wedding. So Charles is a big friend of JR and the King back in those days. And we had dinner with Charles after Phoenix's Raw. Their wedding came into conversation, and Charles Barkley volunteered to pay for the wedding. And of course, Jerry was like, all right, I'm going to save a couple bucks here. So we were friends with them on a personal level outside of wrestling. Why the Cat was let go? So the issue was that, as I remember it, that not one person ever came to me and said stuff like, hey, JR, you got to talk to the Cat. She's just busting our balls. Ever since she got a taste of fame, she's just, going crazy. She thinks she knows better than everybody else. Nothing was ever said, ever. The only thing that was said was by Vince McMahon. He came out of the blue and said, I'm getting too many complaints about Stacy, and I'm not going to tolerate it. I want you to let her go today. And boom. It was that quick. So I tried to discuss it, but basically some of the producers, the writers, or whatever, I think they were definitely the culprit in this matter. Because for whatever reason, she was challenging their authority or their decision-making or their creativity or whatever. Anyway, that was the reason that was given. He also said that, I told Jerry, look, I feel bad about this deal. I don't agree with the decision. I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now. But that's marching orders, and they came from headquarters. So you're a soldier, and you follow those damn orders. You take the guy's money, and you do what he asks. So I did. I even told Jerry, well, maybe, do you want to tell her? I'll tell her, don't get me wrong, but maybe it'll come easier from you. I don't know. I want to make this as easy as I can for both of you. Tell me how I can help do that. So I think he told her, as I recall. So that's kind of how the deal worked. After that, Lawler quit in protest. I thought he might want to take a few days off to show support for her, but I didn't know he was going to quit altogether. But for Vince, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I think Vince was probably thinking further ahead than I, and decided if he bolts, he bolts. It's like Rocky, Vince McMahon, Dolph Lundgren. If he dies, he dies. So Vince said if he bolts, he bolts. So that's where we are. That's kind of how the whole deal went down, and it was a very bad day. And about the Cat, I think the world is Stacy today. She does a lot of stuff with animal rescue. She has her hair salon and spa type thing in Dallas. She does a good job in her post-wrestling life. She separated herself from it for her own benefit and mental health. But she never really deserved to get canned. In my view, and again, I may be over-biased, I may be wrong, but I always thought she kind of got a raw deal on that thing. All right, more AEW news. Chris Jericho found a way to steal and use his "You Made the List" gimmick. You know, in WWE, he did the "You Made the List" and he had his little clipboard. Well, he actually pulled it out on AEW Dynamite this week. And the list and the clipboard, it was called the Lexicon of Le Champion. So instead of the list, it's the Lexicon of Le Champion. He named all the people who he would not fight, because per his contract, he has to defend his title one more time in 2019. Now, for months, I have been telling you people who Jericho says he wants to work with, you know, give a good push, put them over, what have you. He has named Jungle Boy multiple times in multiple interviews. Well, Jungle Boy and his crew came out to the ring. Him and Jericho got into it, and it will be Jungle Boy versus Le Champion on December 18th. Joey Janela did an interview with Post Wrestling. He talked about his match with Jon Moxley, and how he wants to show off his technical skills more instead of him just being a hardcore wrestler. This is what the bad boy had to say. In All Elite Wrestling, Janela has stuck to his hardcore roots, competing in lights out matches against Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, as well as the Cracker Barrel Clash at AEW All Out. But I want to show my technical side. I've been doing technical wrestling for a while now. I've had some matches on the indies with Matt Riddle, Zack Sabre Jr.'s, 30-minute matches with Zack Sabre a couple of years ago in Connecticut, and people on the indies know I can wrestle because I've done it in front of these fans. But these new fans coming into AEW, they see me for the first time. They saw me as kind of a hardcore car accident fuckfest, fucking fall off a ladder and kill yourself type wrestler, which is not the case. So now it's me doing the same thing after I got thrown off that building a few years ago, and proving people wrong on a larger scale to convert people and say, listen, this is not what I'm about. I'm all flavors of ice cream. Perhaps Janela's standout match in AEW thus far was his Lights Out match against Kenny Omega on AEW Dark. That match was praised by fans, leading to a rematch on another episode of AEW Dynamite. Omega was victorious in both contests. Janela said, the response was crazy. Actually, we were supposed to have a straight-up regular match on Dark, said Janela. Nothing too crazy. And I got the call the night before from Tony Khan. They changed it to the fuckfest that it became, and me and Kenny went 30 minutes, which wasn't supposed to be the case. And it was kind of a big match for me, and one of the main reasons why I signed to AEW was to wrestle Kenny Omega. I got it so soon, it came so sudden. I just found that week that I was wrestling him and we did it. We went to TV the next week and did it again. And I look forward to wrestling on pay-per-view in the future and having a big match with him. That's awesome. And Janela did fight Jon Moxley this week on AEW Dark, and he lost again. Janela is a huge talent. You got him going against these guys, he's got to start winning. He should have beat fucking Jon Moxley the first time he fought in the pay-per-view. AEW had a lot of really good promos this week on Dynamite. They highlighted the Bunny, Butcher, the Blade, plus a great dark promo match, and a few more. This is how you present wrestling, if you ask me. WWE news. Well, WWE Backstage this week was pretty cool. I like how they had Seth Rollins on, and they actually called him out about his social media trolling and him calling out CM Punk. I have no fucking idea why they did not have CM Punk show up at all. I thought they were playing it off, saying he wasn't here, and at the end of the episode he was going to show up, but he didn't, which was weak. But it was still cool anyway. And they did announce that John Morrison will make his debut soon, which is great. I reported well over a month ago that he re-signed with WWE. So the Shaman is Sexy is back and will be on TV very soon. Let's hope it's Friday Night SmackDown. Paige also gave props to his wife Taya Valkyrie and said she wants her in WWE. So do I, if I must say. They also covered the Dana Brooke and Batista romance in a very funny way. I can't wait to see where that relationship play goes. Big E did an interview with Wrestling Inc. and he discussed his reaction to Kofi losing his world title in just 10 seconds. Big E said that Kofi Kingston is a lot more level-headed than maybe anyone else that I have ever met in a business, because everyone else would have reacted. Actually, I was irate when I found out about it, and that is a testament to Kofi. I'm not saying no one else in the industry, but very few people would have had that approach. But not many would have taken the approach and not had sour grapes about it and been able to move on. It was a big win for us too as a stable. I think if you compare us to any modern stable, the first that comes to mind is the Shield. I think in a lot of ways we are a lot different than the Shield, but I always think this as of the Shield as a super group. They were always intended to be more, to be world champions. You saw it during day one when they had a different pedigree and they were always going to be top guys. But for us, we were guys that came together on our own just to get on TV. The fact that we were even on TV in a mid-card role was a win. But for the Shield, it would be highly disappointing. Big changes already on the WWE commentating team. Dio Madden has decided to go back to wrestling and not do commentary. So Samoa Joe will take his place on Monday Night Raw until Samoa Joe recovers from his injury. Now, I told you last week that there was high praise about Samoa Joe and JR backstage. So this sounds to me that they sent Dio back to wrestling because they liked Samoa Joe more on the mic. Who knows? Congrats to Woken Matt Hardy and his wife Reba. Today, they did welcome their third child into the world. They're such a kick-ass cool family. Fans rejoice. Maura Ranallo has returned to NXT and WWE. So Corey Graves, like I said, I met him in real life and he could not have been a nicer guy, but shut the fuck up with your comments, yo. Super jelly because Maura blows you away at the commentary table. All right, Pete's, my recommendation of the week is another match. I picked a match like this before, well, with the same people in it anyway, so it's crazy, but their matches are that good. I did pick the Young Bucks versus Red Dragon. If you don't know who Red Dragon is, that is Undisputed's Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. They're one of the sickest tag teams ever on the independent circus. It's them again, but it's a different match that is kick-ass, and this one actually has the NXT Women's Champion, Shayna Baszler, getting involved in a match before any of them went to NXT. So definitely check it out on our Twitters or on Facebooks. And finally, for WWE news, Steven Seagal and Kelly LeBrock's daughter, Arissa Lebrock, has a WWE tryout. With those two parents, she probably kicks ass. Let's hope she gets the job. I did see her in an interview, and she's real pretty. She's a bigger type chick, not fat, but big dick, and she looks like she's going to whoop some ass. So I hope they sign her, not just because of her name alone, but because she does good. Also, real quick, I told you after Survivor Series, Vince McMahon was really high on Keith Lee. Well, Keith Lee was in the main event of NXT this week, and they put him over big time. So that's pretty awesome. All right, just some wrestling news. Enzo and Big Cass did an interview on Talk is Jericho, and they revealed how Ring of Honor ghosted them after their G1 appearance. My daughter and I were there this April. Ring of Honor in New Japan did a pay-per-view at Madison Square Garden, where Enzo and Big Cass appeared. But I personally could tell by the crowd's reaction it wasn't going to last. And this is what the two had to say. Big Cass on being contracted for the G1 Supercard. So yeah, Enzo on a random day gets a phone call from somebody that works under the Sinclair Broadcasting umbrella. Then he calls me and says, "Hey, are you in?" Enzo, I'm being called by Sinclair. Someone from Sinclair called me, not Cass, from Sinclair. Someone from Sinclair. That being said, they had no idea that Cass and me were friends. Everyone in the world to this point thought me and Cass didn't talk. And when me and Cass started talking again, we didn't tell anyone. So that was when I got the phone call about Madison Square Garden. If you think I didn't show up at Survivor Series in 2018 to plant a seed to get me back into the ring one day, whether that would be 2 years from now or 2 weeks from now, I was setting the tone for what I wanted to do if I ever came back. And that was let the world know I'm crazy enough to show up anywhere. Cass on Ring of Honor contacting them after. We got fucking ghosted. I cut a promo on the Briscoes on Twitter a few weeks after because I was shoot hot. Because the person that we were in contact with, we didn't call, get a text that said a good job, and thank you, nothing. And they didn't answer our texts after that. Yeah, completely fucking ghosted. So it's like I would have just wanted to thank you. Because we went out there and there were 5 or 6 people in that match. Very formidable foes. It could have been an 8-on-2 ass kicking. We put our fucking lives on the line for that. We didn't even get a goddamn thank you. That's what pissed me off the most. We could have been because they didn't know what was going on. So the people in the ring didn't have any idea they were coming. And that's exactly what it looked like. So they really could have beat them up. They could have beat the shit out of them 6-on-2. There were 3 people in the whole company of Sinclair and on the Ring of Honor Ulster that knew this was happening. 3 total people. And security at first thought it was part of the show until they smartened up. So they should have broken up way sooner than they did. Cass being angry about it. So what really got me angry, Enzo and Cass trended #1 worldwide on Twitter, okay? Now we trended #1 worldwide over the WWE Hall of Fame, over Bret Hart getting attacked, over the G1 Supercard itself, and the NCAA Final Four. We trended #1 worldwide for however long. It was okay. And our segment wasn't even broadcasted. By word of mouth of fan shop video, we trended #1 worldwide over all those things. I don't understand how a few fans complaining on Twitter could cause someone to be like, nah, let's not use them. Cass on what was supposed to happen after. Our next appearance that was scheduled, I'll say it, we were supposed to be at the next show in Chicago at War of the Worlds. That was our next appearance. We got ghosted. Then I saw pictures from the event, and I don't even know. Attendance seems like it wasn't very good for them. So I was just like, I was kind of mad. It was mind-blowing to me that we got ghosted, and we never got brought back. And finally, Enzo on why he thinks they weren't brought back. I think people's feelings genuinely got hurt. I think they genuinely got hurt, which to me, hey, I was just working, bro. Anyway, remember to check us out on all podcasting platforms, on Facebook and YouTube under the AEW Insider, and on Twitter under the AEW Insider 1. I'm your host, Lee Benson. I'll be back in a couple days with some amazing wrestling news. Thank you so much for joining us on the AEW Insider. Ciao, peeps.